Hey everyone, I hope you all are safe and doing good. So in the previous lecture we have seen what are jump statement, break and continue, and we have also covered till now loops, for while and do while loop. One loop is remaining, that is for each loop, but that thing we'll discuss with arrays because for each loop generally we use with list or arrays. So when we will discuss arrays or list, then we will see what is for each loop. But the basic loops we have covered, types of loops like for, while and do while, as well as decision making statements, if and switch, as well as those jump statement, break and continue. Right? Return is left, but that thing we'll see when we are discussing methods. Now the next topic is what are nested loops, and this thing will really help you see when we will discuss DSA, data structure and algorithm, those programs. When we implement any algorithm, then the prerequisite for DSA is you must have a great or a very in-depth understanding of loops and nested loops as well, how basically loops work, how nested loop works. That's why we have discussed simple loops. Now we will see what are nested loops, and with the help of pattern printing programs we will see working of nested loops, because generally these pattern printing programs, beginners generally do these programs when you are going to start any course or any programming language. When you learn any programming language, then definitely the basic questions would be after discussing loops, pattern printing questions. Although in top tech companies or the big giant, they directly in interview don't ask generally these kind of questions like print this kind of pattern, but in small companies or service based company, they can ask this question that print this loop or this kind of thing or something like this. But these pattern printing questions, these are very important to improve your logic building, to improve your thought process. That's why every time when you go for any course, any programming language course, in any course you see that they discuss pattern printing questions, because to improve your logic building skills, to improve your that thinking capability, to improve your thought process. By solving these questions you will be able to know like how to terminate a loop, what condition you should put, how actually loops are working, internal working of loops. Right, so first we will see nested loops, and while printing any pattern or those questions we need nested loops. Definitely, why nested loops, that thing I'll show you here. So in this video basically we will discuss what are nested loops, why we use nested loops, and basic working of nested loop with one example, and types of nested loop as well, like a for loop, while loop or do while loop. You can nest all the three types of loops. How, that thing I'll show you. Okay, so basically as the name suggests, nested means a loop inside another loop. That is nesting of loops. Simple. See, this thing we can say there is one loop, for loop, within this we are having another loop, so that is what nested loops. Right, now what is nested loop, that thing is clear. But why we need nested loops, this thing is very important to understand. So if you want to print like a single star on your screen, if I say that print single star, like print this on the screen in Java, so simply you can simply write a program. I'm not writing that complete program, single line I'm going to write. That is in Java we simply write system dot out dot print and asterisk. That's it. Simple. If I say let's print here 5 stars, what you will do? You will say, ma'am, that's very simple. Rather than this, I can do something like this. I can do here something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is one way. Okay, fine. Now I say in the same line, print 100 stars, 500 stars, 1000 stars. Can you simply hard code this in your program, something like this? That is definitely not a good idea. We can't do this thing. We are repeating here something, right? We are repeating what? We are simply printing asterisk, 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 or star, 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 star. We are repeating this thing, printing of asterisk. And we know for repetition, we use loops. Whatever you want to repeat, just put those statements or those line in a loop. That's it. Just start that loop and just end that loop somewhere, and that's it. Your game is done. Okay. So with the help of loops, I can do this thing. Like rather than here printing this, I just print one asterisk. And if you want to print 5 within the same line, I can just put this line, because this line you want to repeat, right? So I can simply put this line in a for loop, like for int I is equal to 1 till how many stars you want to print? 5. So I less than equal to 5 and I plus plus. That's it. Done. We know the syntax of for loop. We have already discussed this thing. Initialization, this is the termination condition, and this is what modification, increment or decrement. Or if you want to write here something like I is equal to 0, so you can just termination condition would be I less than 5. Don't include equal to, or I less than equal to 4. These things you can modify according to yourself, but the thing is you have to print only 5 star. That is for sure. Right? Now, one more thing. Let's modify this a little bit. I say that one is this. Now I say that print this kind of thing. Print this. In this line 5 star, again a second line, again a second line with 5 star, 5 star, 5 star. What you will do? You say that using this thing, using this loop, I can simply print this line. That is for sure. So again, if you want to print one more line, so what you will say? Again, we can write down this for loop here. Like suppose, let's write again the same for loop. This kind of thing. But before that, this would not give you the actual output, because after printing this, the next star I want to print in next line. And here I'm simply using print. So you have, before writing this loop, you have to write down one more statement after the sending of this. Simply like, that's it. System.out.println, and nothing you can, here you don't write anything. Something like this you can write. That's it. So this line will give a new line, and then this second loop would be responsible to print the second line. Again, for a new line, you just again write down this line and again the same loop 1 to 5. Now here you will not get any error, because here same I and I am taking, but the scope of this I is within this for loop. So again I can use the same I in another for loop. We have discussed scope of variables already. So this will not give you that redeclaration error or something like this, right? But okay, what if I say print this pattern 5 time this line, 1, then second time, then third, then 4, then 5. So do you really do this thing that 5 times I just write down this for loop, 5 for loop you will use? Or maybe you use, then I say that print something like this 50 lines. So it's definitely not a good idea to write down 50 times this for loop. Yes? Yes or no? Because now the thing is, here we are repeating. See, one first we are printing this line. Again, same line. Again, same line. Again, same line. Because number of stars are same, 5. Again, same line. So we are repeating the same task here again. We are printing the same line again, 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 again. So we are repeating this thing, printing of these 5 stars. So can I do this thing? Just put this logic in a loop again. Yes or no? So to print this line, what is the logic? This is the logic. This. Right? So I can just remove this. No need to again and again write down this thing. Let's remove this thing also. This is the logic. Right? Using this for loop, I can simply print these many stars. So I can just put this logic again within a loop. Suppose for int j is equal to 1. How many times the same line you want to print? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So just run this loop again, or suppose 6 times. Suppose 6 times. So run this loop till less than equal to 6 and j plus plus. And this logic just put in a more loop. Okay, actually it will not print the same thing. You have to print a new line also, because after printing this, we add a new line. So after printing this, here, same you have to print system dot out dot println to insert a new line, and then closing of this outer bracket. So now this will print this pattern. And this is what? Nothing but nested loops. This for loop is within this loop. So this is basically outer loop, and this is basically inner loop. And that is nothing but nested loops. So that's why we need, when you want to deal with those structures having more than one dimension. This is having two dimension. One is this, one is this. Kind of matrix, like we write matrix something like this, like 1 1 or 2 1 3 3 4 5. In maths you have, I think, studied matrix. It is a 3 into 3 matrix. So we have rows and columns. So these are rows, these are columns. So when you deal with multi-dimensional arrays, basically we deal with array, 2D array, 3D array, then you have to use nested loops. When you deal with or do some computation with matrix, then you use nested loops. Basically, when you deal with performing some computation or some action on multi-dimensional structures having more than one dimension, then we use nested loops. For pattern printing, we use nested loops. For some sorting algorithm also, like bubble sort, insertion sort, there also you need to use nested loops to implement those algorithms. So nested loop would be, I think, the very basic thing or the common thing when you go for DSA. In many, there are many use cases. There are so many applications of nested loops. One is simple pattern printing. Okay. So now I hope now you have the idea. Now see the working of this nested loop. Let me show you with this example how actually this nested loop will work. Okay. And there is one simple trick. If you get that simple trick, then you can easily solve any pattern printed question, any pattern type of question, like printing pattern question. Okay, now what is that trick? That also I'll tell you. But for now, this is nested for loop. Same we can have nested while loop. We can have nested do while loop. And it's not like that. Within a for we can have only for loop. No, there are mixed nested loop also. Or you can say hybrid loops also. Hybrid nested loop or mixed. That is, outside we have for, inside this we have while. Maybe inside this again we have do while. So this is hybrid. And nesting can be possible up to many level. Within this I have for. Within this I can have one more for loop or while loop. Within that I can have one more loop. Within that I can have one more loop. So this is a level of nesting. So this nesting can be possible up to many level, but we avoid so many level of nesting because it will increase the complexity only and it will decrease the performance. So nesting we simply take either like 4 and 4, and within this one more 4, that's it. Only 3 loops generally. Generally we do only 4, like sorry, only 2, one loop, within that one loop, that's it. But in some cases if required, then we can take third loop also, but after that we don't take. If you need to take more nesting of loops or many level of nesting, so rather than that we can use some other approach to solve that problem, maybe recursion or maybe if else or something else, because it will only increase the performance time or the time complexity, and it will decrease the performance of the program nesting of loops. Okay, now let's see how this works. So first we have this control will go to the main and this, and then suppose control is here. So within this I have j. So let's say we have j within a memory and the value is 1 for this. Is this condition true? Yes. Yes means control will enter into this loop, right? Within this we have one more for loop. Int I is equal to 1. So one more variable is there allocated memory in that memory space and initialize with 1. Is this condition true? Yes. So again enter into this loop. This line means it will print simple 1 asterisk, right? Now There is only one line within this loop. So the third step is I plus plus. Now I becomes 2. Again, condition would be checked. Next step is this. Is this condition again true? Yes. Enter again. Print one more asterisk. I plus plus. Now I becomes 3. Is this condition true? Yes. Again enter. Again one more asterisk. Again I plus plus. Again check. Condition still true. Again one more asterisk. Then I plus plus. Check. Again condition true. Again enter. Again print one more asterisk. And now I plus plus means I become 6. Now check the condition. Is this condition true? No. Now exit from this loop. Whatever statements are written just after this loop, control will go there. And just after this loop, we have written this line. Because after printing this, we want that cursor should move to next line. That's why we have printed simply println. So now it means cursor is here now. We are still within outer loop. So now control will go to here, j plus plus. Now j becomes 2. Now this condition would be checked. Is this condition true? Yes. Again enter this in this loop. And now again I would be initialized with 1. And for this outer iteration, this inner loop would be iterated how many times? Again 5 times. So again 5 star would be printed here. Like this. Okay. So for one outer loop iteration, this inner loop iteration would be how many times? In this case 5 times. Then for second iteration of outer loop, again inner loop would be iterated again 5 times. Then for third iteration of the outer loop, again the inner loop would be iterated again 5 times. Okay. I hope you got the working of this. So basically the thing is, when you solve pattern printing question, this point will help you in that thing. How many lines you need to print in any pattern? Just identify how many lines you need to print. So this number of lines would be handled by which loop? Inner loop or outer loop? You pause the video and think, because we have discussed this thing. I have told you the working as well. So how many lines you will print? This thing, which loop will handle? Inner loop or outer loop? Definitely outer loop. How many lines you need to print? Okay. Actual printing, whatever you want to print. How many times you want to print? In this line, I want to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So this thing, the inner loop will handle. Means number of rows, how many number of rows would be there? That would be handled by outer loop. How many columns would be there in each row? That would be handled by inner loop. Okay. That's why the inner loop will will iterate 5 times. Now, whatever you want to print, actual thing, whatever you want to print, that thing you will write in inner loop. Okay. That's it. This is the simple trick. So you have to just identify how many lines are there. Just iterate outer loop till then. Then identify how many columns would be there in each row. Till then, the inner loop would be iterated. And then identify what to print. Asterisk or number or alphabet or anything else. And simply print that thing within this loop. Only the thing is you have to, in some complex pattern printing question, you have to just identify this termination condition. You have to just set a relationship between number of rows, number of columns, and that's it. Just do a little bit basic math, plus, minus, into, and this kind of thing. And just you have to frame this condition. Here, this condition is simple. Because in every row, we are printing 5 stars. So that's simply 5. Because that is simple pattern. Okay. But don't worry, we'll see complex pattern. Then you will habitual of, thinking that thing, that how to frame that termination condition, how to establish the relationship. But I hope till now it is clear to you. Nested loop and why we use nested loops. Okay. So nested loops are basically loops within loops, which allow you for repetitive execution of the code blocks in multiple dimension. I have told you, when you are dealing with that complex structures, like having more than one dimension, then we use nested loops like 2D array, 3D array, matrix, And when we are going to deal with those data structure trees, graphs, list of lists, then we use nested loops. In game development also, when especially you want, then there are those games, chess type of games, grid based games, chess, puzzles, checkers, there nested loops are used. Okay. Now, execution, I have told you, the inner loop complete its iteration for each iteration of the outer loop. This thing I have simply told you with example. So this is general syntax like outer loop condition. Within this, we have inner loop condition. This is outer loop code. This is inner loop code. That's it. Okay. This is example of nested for loop. Now you can just try out. You just pause the video and you just dry run this and see what output you are getting. Because one thing I have told you how nested loops work. So you dry run this program and see what output you will get here. What value of I and j would be printed, right? Now, why we use nested loop? This thing also I have told you. When you deal with like multi-dimensional data, then like when you want to process 2D arrays, metrics, or other multi-dimensional data structure, then we use nested loops. Or you want to deal with complex pattern type of question, then we use nested loops, right? Now, this is nested for loop. This is a for loop within another for loop. Okay. What this will print? Let me show you this thing also. Or let's discuss not this with while and do while loop. So this is nested for loop. This is nested while loop. Let's discuss. It's simple. While within while, that is a nested while loop. A do while loop within another do while loop, that is nested do while loop, nothing else. So you can pause the video and write on this and see what output you are getting. Okay. Now let's see. At first we have int I is equal to this. So let me just change this here. So we have first I is 1, then condition I less than equal to 3. This condition true? Yes. So enter here. Now here we have j. So one more variable we have j, that is again 1. Now this condition. Is this condition true? Yes. Again enter here within this loop. Print this I into j. 1 into 1, that is it would print 1. Simple. With a here one space would be added. Now j plus plus. Now j becomes 2. J plus plus means we are still within this loop. J plus plus. Now control will go again to check the condition because we are still within this inner loop, inner while loop. J plus plus means 2. 2 less than equal to 3. Yes. Again enter here. I into j. Let's print here. 2 into 1, that is 2 would be printed. With one space. J plus plus. J becomes 3. Again check the condition. Condition true? Yes. Again what would be printed? 3. J plus plus. J becomes 4. Is this condition true now? No. No means out of this while loop. Whatever is there, whatever is written just after this while loop, control will go there. So we have written a simple println, means we want to add a new line. So control is, cursor is here now. Then I plus plus. Now I becomes 2. Because obviously to iterate, to stop this loop, you have to increment, you have to modify these variables also. I plus plus. I becomes 2. Now we are in outer loop. So check the condition again. Is this condition true? Yes. Again enter here. Now again j would be initialized with here 1 because again j is 1. This condition true? Yes. So again this loop would be repeated 3 times for 1, for 2, for 3. So if j is 1, it will print 2. If j is 2, it will print 4. If j is 3, it will print 6. Once j becomes 4, again condition is not true. Control will go here and cursor would be here, new line. I plus plus. I becomes now 3. Condition true? Yes. Again enter here. Again for 3, j would be again 1. Now for, is this condition true? Yes. Again it would print here 3. So this inner loop would be repeated again. J for 1, for 2, for 3. So here it will print 6 and here it will print 9. Once j becomes 4, this condition is not true. Here cursor is here. I plus plus, I becomes 4. Check the condition. Is this condition true? Outer while loop? No. So we are exiting from this outer while loop. So this thing, this would be the output for this, right? So it's like printing a 3 into 3 multiplication table. So if you want to print like 10 into 10 multiplication table, you can just simply modify the condition and you will get that thing. Or if you want to print a table of 1, 2 and 3 simply up to 10. So this thing you need to do. What you need to print is, right now this program is printing this thing. I hope the working is clear. Now what you have to print? This thing, yeah, now you need to print. Table of 1, 2 and 3. This complete output I want. Can you modify the condition? So you pause the video, modify this program and print this thing. This is not that much tough. This is simple one. Okay. See now. I hope you have done this. The outer loop. How many lines? I told you how many lines you need to print? 10 lines here. So outer loop should run till 10. So this outer loop should run till I less than equal to 10. Inner loop, how many columns would be there? Only 3. So inner loop would be same. Run till 3 only. What you want to print? Simply I into j. So you have to update this condition only, right? And you will get this output. Now next is nested do while loop. This is same. This will also print 3 into 3 multiplication table, but that thing we have simply modified. We are using here nested do while loop. So you know how to use do while loop and you know syntax of do while loop, you know how to use nested loop. So there is one do loop, sorry, do while loop, not do loop. Do is simple a keyword, simply a keyword. So this is outer do while loop. Within this, I am initializing j is equal to 1. This is inner do while loop and we are simply printing I into j. Within this inner loop, simply do j plus plus and this is inner loop condition j less than equal to 3. Then this is outer loop condition I less than equal to 3. Same thing, it will print 3 into 3 table. And if you want to print same the last example we have taken like table of 1, 2, 3 till 10, you can modify this. This thing you need to do yourself, right? Okay. Now this thing I have already discussed when to use for loop. When you know that the number of iteration in advance, how many times the loop should be iterated, that thing we know in advance, then it's better to use for loop. When you don't know actually in advance, like the how many times the statements would be iterated, the thing would be printed, then we use while loop based on some condition. We can simply use some break or something like this to break just that while loop. Do while loop, when you want to execute at least once the body of the loop without checking the condition, if this is the scenario, then we use do while loop. Okay. Now, this is for your exercise. You have to print now this pattern. We have discussed how to print that number of star pattern, maybe a square or rectangle, how many times you want to print that you can modify. But here it's a triangle, left aligned triangle, I guess. So if you can print, you can pause the video and try this out. This is for your exercise. And second is you have to print multiplication table 10 into 10 this time. This thing I guess you can do because this thing we have discussed already in the here only. But the table is 10 into 10. Means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And here also till 10. Table you need to print for till 10. So number of rows are also 10 here. Number of columns are also 10 here. Simple thing. So I guess this thing you can do. You should write this out with for loop, with while loop and do while loop nested with both the, all the three loops, right? And that pattern also you try out. Okay. Now while using nested loop, you have to take care something like don't use meaningful variable names and proper indentation to enhance the code readability. Indentation is very important if you are using like one loop. Sorry. Okay, let me show you this thing practically, what this indentation means. Okay. And this thing I have told you, avoid using multiple level of nesting of loop because this will only increase the complexity. It will only increase the execution time only. Okay, and the complexity as well. So try to minimize the level of nesting. Okay, use print statement or debugger. Use debugger to test the actual working of loop, to debug, to find out the errors in those, in the flow of nested loops, right? So let me show you this thing practically now. So in our first project, let's create a new Java class, and what we are using here, nested loop demo. We are, because discussing in this case nested loops. So what you want to print? Let's print that. I have told you how to print that simple one asterisk. So let's print this thing. So it will simply print. Let's just select the current file, and we know, everyone knows the answer. It will simply print one asterisk on the screen. Nothing fancy thing we are doing. Now, 5 star you want to print. Okay, one is something like this. We can print. How many star you want to print? You can just hard code this thing. But I don't want to hard code. I just want that user should enter how many lines, how many number of rows you want to print, and how many columns you want in each row. For now, let's just print here only 5 star. Oh, sorry, 1 star. And we use loop to print this. So let's just put this in. J is equal to 1 and j less than equal to 5 and j plus plus. So it will simply print. See, indentation simply means this space. After this public class, this line is within some space. So this space is indentation. Again, we are writing 4, then with some space, extra space. Within this 4, I'm writing this one line with some extra space. So if you simply write here, start writing from here, that also fine. That will not give you any error. But to increase the readability of the code, we just provide indentation, so that we know this within this for loop we have this, right? Now this will simply print 5 star. I mean 5 number of star on the screen. But something like this, because we are using here println, so just remove this and it will simply print all the star in one line like this. Now let's put this again one more for loop, that is int I is equal to 1, and I want to print less than equal to 6. Number of line I want 6. So let's put this in within this. But after this loop, you have just to go to a new line, you have to add println. Let's run this and see now what type of pattern you will get here. Simply this. We are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and in every row we are having 5 columns. 5 number of star means 5 columns we are having. So these are fixed. But I want that. Now you modify this. I want user should enter number of rows and number of columns. I don't want to just hard code the 6 and 5. So let's pause the video, you guys, and try this out. To take input from the user, obviously we have to create a object of scanner class. That is the basic thing we know. And let's just ask from the user, enter number of rows. And then let's take a variable int rows, and using scanner dot, sorry, scanner dot next int. And then what you want to print, enter number of columns. For that, let's take a variable name, columns equal to, using scanner, let's take next int. That's it. Now outer loop is responsible to print how many lines are there, so how many rows. So rows are there in this variable rows, so it should iterate till number of rows, and the inner loop should iterate till number of columns. That's it. So rather than printing that pattern, it will first ask number of rows I want 7, number of columns only suppose 2. See, 7 rows and 2 columns, right? Again run this, and number of rows 5, number of columns 6. See, so this is the pattern. Now this is nested for loop. This is what you can say indentation also. So within this for loop, we are again using one more for loop with some indent. We have provided some extra space as well. Not we have provided, but this is like beauty of IDE. Our IDE we are using IntelliJ. So this IDE no. If you write this same code in Notepad or any this kind of thing, in that case you have to manually provide the space or indentation. But this thing, the you can say that this structure of the program, the indentation and everything would be taken care by this IDE itself. So we didn't no need to take care about this thing. This is beauty of using an IDE, integrated development environment. So you can modify this. You can use here while loop or do while loop. Let's just write down the same program. Rather than this, let's just comment out this and let's use while loop. So in while, we simply put the condition I less than equal to rows. But here first you have to initialize int I is equal to 1. This is my outer loop. Within this outer loop, we are initializing one more variable, that is j for inner loop. And for inner loop, the condition is j should be less than equal to whatever columns you will provide, that. And within this, we are simply printing star. And just after this inner loop, we are simply printing a new line. But for this, you have to increment this j plus plus within this loop, otherwise it will be an infinite loop. So let's not increment this I. Let's not do not write I plus plus. Run this and see. It would be an infinite loop. Number of rows 5, columns 6. See, this will never end. And here you have to avoid this println and write print. So now let me run this and show you again the output. It will be an infinite loop. The outer loop is infinite loop because that is never gonna stop. See, right? So that's why you have to do like I plus plus or j plus plus to take care of this thing, to handle these kind of situation in finite loops. Let's run this 5 and 5, and this is the 5 star. So same you can modify this and use do while loop also. This thing you can try out the same program with do while loop. Do loop we have done for and while. You try out with do while loop, nested do while loop. And if you want to check how this loop is running, I've told you you can always debug your program. You just add some breakpoints like here also, within this while loop and within this while printing this. Let's just add some breakpoints. Right click, debug, and see first breakpoint is this. So control is going to stop here. Here is the control right now. Okay. Now once it is asking you enter number of rows. On the console you can see enter number of rows. So I'm just entering 2 only. And then step over. Then it will ask you number of columns. So let's just step over again, enter number of columns again 2. Again step over. So I becomes 1. Control is here now. Let's step over. Rows are 2. I is equal to 1. So this condition is true as you can see here. Let's step over. J is equal to 1. So let's step over. This condition also true. See, J is 1, columns are 2. So this condition is also true. Let's step over. Now, once you step over, then one asterisk is there on the screen, on the console. See, this is 1 star, as you can see here, right? Now J plus plus. Let's step over. See, now J becomes 2, right? Again, this condition is true. Step over. Again, one more star would be printed. See, there are 2 stars now. Now J becomes C 3. Now this condition is false. So, see now where control will go. Directly out of the inner loop. That is, just after the inner loop, we have this line. So simply a new line would be printed. Cursor is in the new line now. Now I plus plus. Now I becomes C2. Right? Let's run again. Now outer loop condition would be checked again. So this is still true. So now see, the inner loop would be again executed 2 times. 2 star would be printed. Now this becomes false. Step over, new line, I plus plus. Now the ci becomes 3. Step over. Now this condition is, outer loop condition is false because I is 3, rows are 2. Step over and simply exit. That's it. So 2 star, 2 rows and 2 lines. So like this you can debug your program and you can see if you're not getting why you are getting that output, or there is something wrong. So you can add some breakpoints where you want to stop your program and this debug your program. That is a very good idea to find out the errors. So I hope now you got what are nested loops, why we use nested loops, and how to use, or you can say basically what is working of nested loops. We will see one application of nested loop, that is pattern printing. In the next lecture, we are going to print so many patterns. And when we are discussing arrays, then also we will see one more application, like when you are going to handle 2D array, process 2D array, 3D array, then we use nested loops. When we will be going for DSA, then there also we will be using in trees and graphs and sorting algorithm nested loops. So one by one, you will be having, getting a clear idea that why we need basically and where we use nested loops. But the basic thing about nested loop is, I guess, clear to you, right? So in the next lecture, we will see pattern printing questions. Now I'll see you in the next lecture. Till now, bye. Take care.